Hi, Frank here, and today it is sous vide tri-tip, and the way we do it is really special. It'll come out unbelievably good, and we're going to show you exactly how I do it. We're going to cold smoke it, we're going to sous vide it, and then we're going to use a flamethrower to put the bark on it. So stay tuned. Before we get started, let's talk about a couple of safety things that a lot of people really don't think about. One is this cutting board. On this cutting board, most people get a cutting board like this and they immediately put it on their counter and they start cutting. But I can, with one finger, you'll notice that this is all going all over the place. That makes it very dangerous to use with a knife, because if you slip and the cutting board slips while you're cutting, you have a real risk of injuring yourself. But there's a very simple solution, and it's the shelving stuff that you can get in almost any store. It comes in rolls and it's non-stick or non-slip. All you have to do is put down a nice piece of that on your counter, put the cutting board on top of it, and guess what? Nothing moves. It is absolutely phenomenally good, and you're really much safer. The next thing I want to talk about safety-wise is what kind of knife we use. This particular knife is made by Mercer, and I own a number of their knives. They're very inexpensive, but they are incredibly good. They're very, very sharp razor. I could basically shave my skin with how sharp this knife is. It's on a 15-degree angle, which is the new Japanese and Asian style, which all the Europeans and American knives are switching to from 20 degrees. It makes it very good to cut. It's very ergonomic. The handle has got safety features like this area where your forefinger goes, and you're able to use it really well. It's somewhat flexible, and it's just a phenomenally good knife, and it's for less than $19 on Amazon. There'll be a link in the comments. I'll show you what we're going to do with this next. So here's our tri-tip. Nice piece of meat. We buy it on sale whenever it goes on sale. I've got 8 of them in my freezer just because it's such a great piece of meat. But what I want to do before I actually start doing anything sous vide or smoking or putting bark on it later to do is that unlike other meats, we don't really need this flat cap on tri-tip when we're doing sous vide, because it's not going to render down all that well in sous vide, and we really just don't need it. And it's not something that's going to add a lot of flavor or anything else. And this is pretty tough on here as it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to use that Mercer knife I talked about, and we're just going to basically, well, before I do that, so what we're going to do with this is we're going to trim off the heavy fat off of that. Now I like using these nitrile gloves that have I don't know whether you can see that, but they've got kind of bumps in them, which makes them non-stick, and they don't. It makes them non-stick and allows you to hold meat without slipping. Again, a safety feature when you're working with very, very sharp knives. And this piece of meat is somewhat slippery if you're just using your bare hands. So I put this on, and now I can really grab this piece of meat. And basically what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start trimming off this fat. And it's going to get, the fat's going to come off nice and pretty. We're going to take the back side here and we'll just trim it down. I'm not going to bore you with the whole trimming, but this is basically how easy it is to trim off the fat off of the cap of tri-tip, and once we have that done, we're down into the really good meat, which is what we want to be. I'll be back as soon as we finish trimming. And here we are back. This now is trimmed up really nicely, both sides. There's a little bit of fat on there, but that's all right. That's exactly what we want. It'll render down significantly. This is the fat that came off of there, and this is just really unnecessary. We might make some kind of bird feeder out of it, or something like that. So our next step is going to be to take this out to the cold smoker, where we're going to smoke it for about 2 to 3 hours with hickory pellets. That's going to put just a hint of smoke onto it. It's not going to give it a smoke ring or smoke it through, because we're not going to use any heat. We're going to use a really neat product called Amaze-N pellet burners, and they're going to basically smoke for 2 to 3 hours without any help, and we'll show you how we do that next. Now we're ready to start cold smoking. And cold smoking means that we're not going to turn any heat on inside of the grill. We're going to basically use these hickory pellet smokers, and we're just going to cold smoke it for 2 to 3 hours in here, which is just going to put a little bit of smoke flavor onto the meat, after which we go to sous vide. So the first thing that we have to do is we have to light off these smoke pellets, and I do that with my little torch here. And let's get that going. So It's just a matter of getting these things lit, and we're going to let them run for about 5 or 6 minutes while the flame, once we get this going. And then these things will start smoking like no tomorrow. All right, now that these are blown out and they are smoking like crazy, here's what we're going to do next. We're going to take these and we're going to carefully move them to either side of the grill on this side. And the other one. Don't want those pellets falling out if we can avoid it. And that's sort of like, almost like incense. It's going to burn all the way down. And now it's time to take our meat and put it onto this raised platform that I've made for my grill. What that does is it allows the smoke to get on both sides really easily. It's going to go on here beautifully, and we're just going to let it smoke cold for about 3 hours. And we'll turn it over in about an hour, hour and a half, just so that we get a equal amount of flavor on both sides. We'll close this up for a second. I'm just going to let you watch it for a second and watch how fast this smoke really permeates this entire grill side. It's coming out the back already. I'm just going to open this up and watch what the smoke is doing inside. Look at this. It is just full. And that's what we're going to do for the next 2 to 3 hours. Next, we'll be putting it in sous vide. Stick with me. All right, we've pulled our tri-tip out of the cold smoking. It's been cold smoking for about 3 hours. And now it's time to season it and get it ready for sous vide. So here's what we do. Normally, tri-tip by tradition is done by what they call Santa Maria style. And Santa Maria style involves equal parts of salt, pepper, and garlic powder. However, tonight we're going to do the seasoning with Montreal steak seasoning, which my wife loves, and I'm making this for her. So that's what we're going to use. So we're just going to very liberally season both sides of the tri-tip and get it ready for vacuum sealing and then into sous vide. So let's just get beginning. We'll just take this and really liberally season it all over. Pat it in a little bit as we go. Make sure you do the edges. And then on the other side, we will continue to just make sure that it is really well seasoned. We're going to vacuum bag this with a couple of sprigs of rosemary, some thyme, and a couple of garlic cloves in there while it sous vides for 3 hours. So this is pretty much ready. We'll just do a little rub on here, and we are ready to bag it. And as we bag it, it's pretty simple. We're going to put it in a vacuum bag, and then we're going to vacuum seal it. So while I get my rosemary and my other things ready, I'll be with you in just a minute. We'll be back next. So we're back. We're ready to add the aromatics and the garlic. A little clue about rosemary. A recent study, actually this is a true story, has determined that actually sniffing rosemary can improve memory. It's unreal, but apparently it's the truth. So smelling fresh rosemary regularly can actually cause something in the brain which can actually improve memory. All we do is we place this inside the bag on top of the tri-tip. We'll do the same with tarragon, and we'll just kind of put it in there. This is an aromatic which will enhance the flavor, and a couple of crushed pieces of garlic in 2 different places. It's very simple. Let's move over to the vacuum machine. Now, while food saver machines and other vacuum units are very good, this Weston unit is a little bit more of a professional level, and I use a lot of vacuuming, so this is really a great item. And all we're going to do is take the meat in its bag, and we're going to set it up, and it's a very simple process then of just pushing start. It's going to compress the meat, and it's taking all the air out of here completely. And we get to the seal, As a note, I feel very confident with this particular vacuum sealer. For the most part, it works very well, especially on sizes of meat like this. If I'm using a much bigger piece of meat like a brisket or some major roast, I might actually double bag and double seal just to make sure that we had no water intrusion into the bag. But this is ready to go into the bath, the sous vide bath, so let's do that. Our sous vide bath is set for 129 degrees. My wife likes rare to medium rare, and that's going to give us a good thing. So we're going to run this in here for about 3 hours, 2.5 to 3 hours, and that's going to cook it all the way through. It'll all be 129 degrees from inside out when we're done, and from there we'll put a bark on it, and it'll be ready to slice. It's a very simple matter of just putting it in the sous vide. It's set for 129 degrees, and we're ready to rock. And now here we are 3 hours later, and it's time to pull our tri-tip out of the sous vide. There's a couple things we have to do en route. So we'll pull it out, bring it over where we can cut it out. And let's see what we have. The thing about sous vide is pulling it out of sous vide, the meat is not going to look pretty, but we are going to make it look pretty soon. So let's take it out of the bag and make sure that it gets dry. Doesn't look all that appetizing right now, but we'll go ahead and peel off the rosemary and the garlic, and we'll dry it out. It has to be dry for the next step. At this point, we're going to let it rest for about 10 minutes, and then we're going to take it outside where we can use the flamethrower to put on a bark. That'll be next. And now here we are. We've got a nice piece of meat on a stand, and we're going to use a very different technique for making sure we get a really solid bark on this meat. It takes a 20-gallon can, and this is actually a weed eater or a weed flamethrower. But we're going to flamethrow it. Ready? Here we go. Time for the other side. We'll just flip the beat and do it again. The tri-tip's now been rested for 10 minutes. It's time to cut it and see how we did. We've been through a long process. We've cold smoked it, and then we've basically seasoned it. We've put it in sous vide for 3 hours, and then we've gone out and we've put a nice bark on it, and now we're going to cut into it and see exactly what we have on the inside. As I said, sous vide is going to heat it exactly the same inside and outside. The crust right now is just a little bit warmer than the inside, and that's only because we quick flame thrown it. So let's take a look and see how we did. We're always going to cut against the grain on most meats, and this one we see the lines going this way, and we're going to cut basically into a nice area cut. Take a look at that. That's what we have on the inside. It's absolutely gorgeous. It is completely tender. Before we go any further, we do a bend test. The bend test is perfect. This is just as juicy as can be. Look at that juice falling off of there. And then the pull test, it just comes apart in your hand. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. This is the way that we like to eat it. So now I'm going to cut it. I'm going to slice it, and we're going to have this ready for later. And we'll just do slices like this all the way down the meat. Let me finish up here, and we'll go to the end, and I'll show you what it looks like when we're completely done. And here is the finished product. Take a look at how good this meat looks all the way through. It is just juicy. It is rare, medium rare. The bark on it is fantastic. The bark is a nice solid bark, which adds a lot of flavor and a lot of texture to it. It's got seasoning, and it's completely moist inside. And that's the way that sous vide cooks, and that's why it's so important to do sous vide sometimes if you really want tender, juicy, succulent meats. This is the absolute critical mass. It's just perfect. If you like this video, I'd ask you to subscribe and put a like in the below. I'll add links to all of the various different products that we used in this video. Be advised that anything that I put in a link to is something that we actually use and have tested. And we will only recommend products that we have felt very, very good about and that we use in our own home and in our own cooking. Other than that, have a great one. We'll see you on the next video. We'll do it again. Take care.